Hello everybody, my name is KingStix. In this video I'm going to be showing you how to play Kindred pretty much perfectly in roughly Platinum ELO. This game the tier average is Platinum 4. Currently I have 100% win rate on this account. Going to do a solo climb to Challenger. I did hit Challenger earlier this season, but roughly 10 to 15% of my games I duoed, so I want to have a little bit more of a pure experience and still achieve it. Kindred is a perfect champion to do this with, even though she is highly mid lane reliant. If you're playing her properly, you can pretty much 1v9 on her every single game up until high diamond. First off, it's important not to take an ability on Kindred up until you start your first camp. This will allow you to start Q if you need to, if the enemies come out of nowhere and invade you. If I had already started my W, it would have forced me to flash the wall there, and the enemies most likely would have flashed with me, knowing they could keep up. But since I hopped the wall with my Q, they figured we don't want to flash it, because if we flash, then she'll just flash and she's already on the other side. That one little mistake could have gotten you killed and cost you your first red buff. If you lose out on your first red buff as Kindred or die early, you're basically boned. So in this situation, we pushed all the way into the enemy's jungle. We got Shyvana low. I'm going to be starting on her blue buff instead of running over to my red buff and taking it late. Having Q isn't ideal for your first camp. You'll be taking it much slower and you'll be taking more damage as well. If it's what it takes to keep you alive from an early invade though, that's what you got to do. Walls are your best friend as Kindred in the early game in particular. It'll help you get to your next camp faster, especially if you are invading or running back into your own jungle in a hurry. I can go immediately from her blue buff over to my red buff. Right now, I'm not quite sure where Shyvana started. I figured she probably got a late start on her red buff and is clearing her jungle right now, and I don't want to risk her getting my blue buff. So instead of going for the golems for level 3, I'm going to be running straight to my blue buff to potentially kill her in a solo situation. For those of you wondering why I didn't stay in her jungle and take her Gromp and Wolves, my bot lane was being very aggressive on the enemies. They got a kill and ended up backing, so I didn't want to stay in her jungle for too long, because as her bot lane came back to lane, if they walked through their jungle or warded, it could have been a very bad situation for me. While taking my blue buff, I see Shyvana is ganking top, so as a jungler, I immediately press tab and see how much CS she has. She only has 4 CS, and I also check and see that she has red buff. That means she's only taken one camp, being her red buff, because remember, each camp is worth 4 CS. If you watched the way she moved from the gank, it looked like she was running directly into the river, so I feel like she's moving into here to take my blue buff or to potentially gank mid. Given the situation of her only having red buff and me having red and blue buff, I figure I can fight her as long as I use the walls to my advantage. Sure enough, as I run out, I find her. She has more health than me, but watch this. I immediately W and Q over the wall and start autoing her. My W, since it's attacking her, is going to keep giving me vision of her while I auto her. She realizes that I know how to kite and then just starts to run. Meanwhile, I have my red buff slow on her and I'm going to stay on top of her. She really shouldn't have turned around and hit that plant. It's going to give me more time to auto her for free. At some point she realizes that there's no way she's going to get away without flashing, and she takes her chances. I did not use my flash at the beginning of the game when they attacked me near Dragon Pit. Instead, I used my Q. If I had wasted my flash because I foolishly leveled up my W before my camp spawned, then I wouldn't have had my flash to secure that kill. That one move that I played correctly at the start of the game has set me up for many opportunities, from getting my team kills at the beginning to now killing Shyvana and getting a lead over her, and is really snowballing the game in our favor. Of course, after killing Shyvana, you're gonna want to take her camps. In this case, we knew she'd only taken her red buff because of her CS count, so I could go into her jungle with confidence, knowing that my time isn't going to be wasted. If Shyvana shows up at this point, I'm gonna level up on her with double buffs. I could easily scrape her off the map, and if she doesn't show up, then that's great too. After taking Shyvana's golems, it put me in a perfect spot to gank Garen. However, he had just backed and I didn't want to wait 30 to 40 seconds to gank him, since there's still plenty of stuff up on the map, and if I do get seen top lane and we don't kill him, it could easily let Shyvana back into the game. After taking Scuttle's Crab, I see Garen is top lane. I have to wait for Garen to get really greedy and blinded by the cannon minion. That way I can gank him, because it's very obvious that he went into ward. The only way you can gank laners who clearly have it warded is if they're in the middle of a trade, or if they're greeting for a cannon minion. Just their whole brain shuts down, they see it, they put on their tunnel vision, and it's typically a pretty free gank. In this case, Garen is extremely tanky. I haven't bought my items yet, and unfortunately he does have Dorn Shield, so he barely slips away. This is a useful gank tactic that you're gonna have to learn how to employ in time better and better as you climb higher in elo, to allow yourself to have even more gank opportunities. In base, I get Berserker Greaves since I am pretty far ahead and I want to apply more gank pressure to help me get around the map and punish Shyvana even harder as she falls farther and farther behind. If you are going to rush Berserker Greaves, you need to be mindful that without Hunter's Talisman you won't have much mana, so you need to avoid full clears with Berserker Greaves and instead going for the ganks. After taking golems, I wait in this bush since the enemies just got back to lane. Odds are it wasn't gonna be warded. Sure enough, Thresh walks up to ward. I QW out, E him for the slow, and it's a super easy kill. At this point, I don't even have to stay. Blitz and 𝐒𝐿𝐼 can push up 2v1, and if Jinx tries to defend turret, Blitz can threaten her with the hook all in. If it was a Soraka or a Sona, of course I would have stayed to help get the turret plates, but once again, he can threaten the all in, so there's really no reason for me to stay there. As I'm running through river, I'm looking to pick up some mana to potentially go in for another gank. Instead, I see Shyvana near the Tribrush bot lane, and she uses the Vision Plant. At this point, I'm assuming she's going in for her Gromp or ganking my bot lane, so I'm just going to check real quick. Her Gromp and Wolves are both down, so that situation is now void. Veigar is foolish enough to try to fight me. I WQ on top of him, E, and I start bashing him in with my autos. Thresh lands a really good hook, but Kindred is really damn slippery since her W puts her Q on such a short cooldown. And I have Berserker Greaves. That's one really nice thing about rushing Berserker Greaves is the odds of the enemies actually pinning you down and killing you is very low in the early game, especially since before the 8 or 9 minute mark, most champions haven't even bought in boots yet. After that fight, Shyvana lost half of her HP and ran over to her raptor area, so in my mind I wanted to go kill her. I run over to her raptors, she's not there. At that point I knew she'd either back, gone to her golems, or went for my scuttle mark. So I run over to my scuttle, she's not there, and it's just a free pickup. I'm not quite sure what she did at this point. While taking scuttle, I'm looking around to my nearest laners. I see Vladimir is getting Garen low on health. Garen isn't level 6 yet. Vladimir's level 6. I ping to go in, and it is a really easy dive. Looking for that kind of information while you're just AFK farming NPCs as a jungler is super important. If you were a bad jungler, you would have just only been looking at the scuttle crab and then gone back into your own jungle to farm. Instead, I kept my eyes open. Garen's a level below Vlad. Garen's missing half his HP. That's an easy kill. Now, if I would have pinged that, and if Vladimir was bad, he would have pinged me off, and in that case, I wouldn't have forced it because I would have known that Vladimir wasn't a good player and probably would have hung me out to dry. After taking Shyvana's golems and red buff, instead of running over to my blue side jungle, clearing it, or even doing a full clear at that point, I needed to back because I was sitting on a lot of gold. I still hadn't purchased my Hunter's Talisman, which makes full clearing very difficult since you're constantly running out of mana, and I even had enough gold to nearly finish my full jungle item. At this point, even if I run into Shyvana with a quarter HP, as long as I kite properly, I know I can solo her. After taking red buff, I want a full clear and look for a potential gank. Since Dragon is still up, I preferably want to gank bot. If I show top, Shyvana will solo Dragon. Shyvana foolishly shows up bot lane, which makes my option very easy. Thresh isn't here, so I don't have to worry about any hard CC and can use my Qs freely to stay on top of the Jinx and rip apart her HP. After killing Jinx and doing some of Shyvana's HP, I can now go into her jungle, take Dragon, or look for another gank. I see she went to path through the Tribrush whenever she was defending the turret, so I figured I could find her on Gromp or perhaps kill her on her wolves. Even better, she lingers on her turret. After I jump over the wall, I find her and she's completely defenseless. I am now 3 levels up on the Shyvana. She isn't even level 6 at the 10-minute mark because of the heavy counter jungling I've been doing to her and how often I'm putting pressure on her. After killing Shyvana, Dragon is free. I kind of want to gank mid though, and I really want to get that mark on her raptors. If my mark wasn't up on her raptors right now, I would just take the Dragon. I dropped the mark on Veigar since he's the only one alive to really contest me. Veigar seems to have left, so I'm going to cross through mid to quickly get to my mark. He's being a bit of a nuisance, so I want to teach him a lesson. I act like I'm running the other way and then immediately WQ on top of him, being careful to stay out of turret range for as long as possible. I also noticed during this interaction that Shyvana is trying to take my mark right now. As an alpha Chad jungler, I won't allow this, so I used my flash to escape the situation and put myself into a new one. I was very low on HP, and I was ready to use my ultimate the moment Shyvana realized I had flashed the wall and tried to attack me. Other than being fed, I also had two factors working in my favor. The first one is I killed the enemy mid laner, allowing Yasuo to come help me while I was living in my ultimate. The second one is I took Conqueror and Shyvana greedily went Dark Harvest. While fighting in Kindred ultimate, I can build up all of my Conqueror stacks, so whenever we come out of my ultimate, I'll be very, very powerful. Meanwhile, the Shyvana Dark Harvest won't be doing anything since it has such a long cooldown. At this point in the game, I built up such a commanding snowball lead over the Shyvana. For large portions of the game, I can be in her jungle, taking her camp, starving her further, which also allows me to be closer to her laners, which makes ganking much easier as well. It takes away a lot of warding options that enemies normally have, since I can be coming from literally any direction. As I move into gank now, the enemies will completely run away, not wanting to risk a fed Kindred turret dive. This lets us take plates really easily, and it will also let us take objectives like Dragon and Herald very easily as well. This game in particular, I haven't been playing around dragons as much. The reason for it is I had such a big lead over the enemy jungler early on that going for a dragon wasn't always the best option, even though it was usually a good option. If this was in higher diamond or against high win rate players, I would be taking safer good options like dragon more often, because higher better players tend to rotate on you more as a jungler. Whenever you are in low diamond or lower, typically whenever you go to kill the enemy jungler in any given situation, there is a certain reaction delay that the enemies normally exhibit, or they may not come at all if they feel like you're going to kill their jungler or get away anyways. With that being said, going for these aggressive plays with my lead isn't necessarily making me a better player, because right now I could easily be going for Rift Herald to end the game faster, while at the same time I don't think it's making me a worse player, because I'm still trying to keep track of where Shyvana is, on what camps are up, and in general who is on what spot of the map. I'm not just blindly invading. That's just something to keep in mind as you climb higher in elo. You will have to adjust your strategies in the way you play, even if it wasn't a bad strategy previously. The smartest play right now would to go take Herald and then get a pick, group up with my team, and end the game. Instead, I'm being greedy, just looking for kills, and in general not going for the neutral objectives when they're free. Taking Herald and Dragon right now while waiting for my team to group would be the best, but instead this is what you see. I'm making a low elo mistake and I'm waiting for a kill. I figured Shyvana would come back to her red buff because I just farmed her raptors, her red, and her golems. I figured she would come back here assuming something would be up. Instead, I find Thresh. I'm gonna go ahead, try to all in him. I get his ultimate and his flash, which is nice, but it's not really what we need to end the game. I then see Veigar is trying to defend his turret mid. All I have to do is run up behind him, WQ, stay on top of him with my autos, and only tank one turret at a time, and I can easily kill him. I didn't end up tanking the top turret since he ran right, but if he did run north, I would have swapped turret aggro and would have actually saved myself a lot of damage, because whenever turret is hitting you, it will do more and more damage per shot. So if you can swap out turret aggro to a second turret, rather than tanking 4 shots from the same turret, tank 2 from 2 separate turrets, you'll be taking a lot less damage. For those of you wondering why I ulted here, it wasn't in reaction to what Blitz was doing. I was actually ulting to save my cannon minions and my minions in general from the turret, so I want to take inhibitor and end the game. Once again, that would have been a lot easier if instead of waiting to kill Thresh or Shyvana, if I instead would have just went for Rift Herald. For the rest of this game, the enemies pretty much lie down like a beaten dog. They've had enough and they just want the suffering to end. If you guys want to watch me climb on this account completely solo queue to Challenger on NA, feel free to check me out on my Twitch stream, twitch.tv/KingStix. It's gonna be a lot of fun and I'm looking forward to seeing you guys there. Also, if you did enjoy the video, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. It really does help out with the YouTube algorithm. My name is KingStix. Thank you for watching. I'll catch you guys next time.
So bright, it's hard to breathe, but that's alright. Hush.